This story is going to make me sound crazy, but here goes. Before this incident, I had never used a Ouija board in my life. Growing up, I had an aunt who would dabble with Ouija boards and the paranormal, and my mother always advised me to never touch one. One day, my partner decided it would be fun to buy a Ouija board and use it with a few friends. I wouldn't say we were complete skeptics, but I don't think any of us were really expecting anything wild to happen. We went on the internet and looked up how to safely use one and planned out what kind of questions we should ask. So we run to Toys R Us and we pick up a Hasbro Ouija board. We didn't really want to use it at our house, so we gathered up a couple friends and I drove to a state park a few towns over. We start to head up the hiking trail and find a good spot to lay the board down. We begin going through the motions of asking if there was a spirit who would like to communicate, all the normal stuff that you would do. The planchette moved with ease. It's a really strange, powerful feeling when it glides across the board. The planchette it came with was a thick hunk of plastic, and there was quite a bit of friction when trying to intentionally move it on the board. We were all stunned at the fact that the damn thing was working. We asked if it was a good spirit. Of course, the planchette moved over to no. We then asked if it wanted to harm us. The planchette moves over to yes. My partner asked how it would go about doing this. The board began to spell out ENGINE, engine. We see a group of hikers coming up in our general direction and we carelessly put the board away without properly saying goodbye. We hike back down to another secluded area and decide to try again. This time, we come into contact with a spirit who claims to be a 6-year-old boy who died sometime in the 1800s. Now, he seemed nice at first, and that was until he told our friend he wanted him to die so that he would have someone to play with. We decide to ask the board questions only we would know the answers to. Each person asking the question took their hands off the planchette to be certain. The board got every damn question correct, and that's when I started to feel a bit uneasy. I honestly couldn't believe it. The board then proceeded to spell out my name. I was confused as to what that meant. Soon after, it began to rain, so we told the board that we had to go, and asked if it would help us bring the planchette down to goodbye. It complied. We all begin walking back to my car when I noticed this woman sitting in an SUV next to mine, just watching us. Her gaze never really left, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. We all get in my car and I go to start it, and the engine doesn't turn over. It was almost as if the battery was dead, but my accessories still worked. I began to shit bricks. I hadn't had my car for very long and it never gave me trouble. It seemed like way too big of a coincidence. I look over at that woman and put my window down and ask her if she has jumper cables. She reaches behind her and pulls them out as if she had them ready. We get out of my car and hook them up when my partner's friend's phone rings from a number he doesn't recognize. He picks it up and it was someone just asking if we were okay. He chalked it up to the fact that a drug dealer previously had the number, so he got a lot of unknown calls. Weird. We start chatting with this woman and thank her for letting us use the jumper cables. Turns out she has the same name as me, which the board had previously spelled out. Was this perhaps a warning? She tells us that she works as an ultrasound technician at a local hospital. We ask her what she's doing in the parking lot, to which she explained that she was waiting for her weed dealer. Medical marijuana is legal in my state, so I was a bit perplexed but didn't think anything of it. I was just grateful she was helping us. I go to try and start the car and it still doesn't work. It just kind of rolls for a few feet in the parking lot before shutting off. At this point, it's getting dark and I begin to come to terms with the fact that I'll have to call a tow truck. Our friends ended up getting picked up and my partner stayed with me as we waited for the tow truck to arrive. We told the woman she could leave since she was still weirdly waiting with us. She offered for us to sit in her car while we wait because it was raining again. I asked her if she could pop the trunk so I could sit on the ledge, but she told me the trunk didn't open. So, stupidly, I get in her car with my partner. The weird woman made a joke about disabling her child safety locks in the back so I won't think she's trying to keep us here. That rubbed me the wrong way. She starts telling me that maybe I should just leave my car there and offered to give me a ride home. I politely decline. Then she tells me that she has a friend whose husband works for VW and that he could surely fix my car for a good price. She calls up her friend, and because we were in the car, it was quiet enough that my partner and I could faintly hear the other line. She explains the car problem and asks how much it would be to fix it. We hear on the other line the person ask if I'm a boy or girl. The woman says girl, and the man on the line simply said good. Nope, we get out of the car and tell her the tow truck should be there soon and thank her for the help. We gave her the Ouija board and told her she could keep it because we didn't want it anymore. I still wonder what she did with it. She kept trying to get me to give her my phone number and kept saying she would come with me to get my car fixed from her friend. Eventually, she fucked off. We ended up getting back home late. Told the AAA guy how we were fucking around with a Ouija board and met the weird lady afterwards. He said he wouldn't have picked us up if he had known that. The next day, my partner opened up his text that he sent out when we were waiting for the tow. In a conversation with his mother, the text box had, "Yes, Satan, yes," written out. The message wasn't sent, but he sure as hell didn't write that. The next day, I called the hospital to see if that woman even worked there like she had claimed. Nope. They transferred me to 2 different floors and there was no ultrasound technician working there with my name. To this day, I still don't know how to explain what happened that night. And I'm sure as hell never going to use a Ouija board again. Also, the dealer the woman claimed to be waiting for never even showed up. So what she was doing that night and what her intentions were, I'll never know. This is a story I swear I wouldn't speak of again because it still haunts all of my family to this day. This happened when I was age 9 and I'm now 16. My aunt, Sherry, wanted to live on her own with her kids. She had always lived with my grandparents. She moved to the south side of our city into this huge house. I always got the creeps from this house when I went to visit. She lived there for about 2 weeks when the weird shit started happening. At first it was toys and other stuff going missing, then mysteriously showing up in different places. Then it came to stuff being thrown from upstairs to downstairs. Being that young, I honestly thought it was my older cousins just messing with me. But every damn time I went to look upstairs, they weren't there. I started to go over to the house more and more because my aunt always babysat me for my parents. I remember this night specifically because it was the night my aunt truly knew something was going on in the house. Myself and a couple of my female cousins were upstairs listening to music and dancing when one of them told me to run the house phone downstairs. But as soon as I got down to the bottom of the stairs, my aunt came running to the staircase with a baseball bat, pulling me back up the stairs. Then she took the phone from me, calling her oldest son, Dan. Dan came over and looked around the house. However, they never did tell me what happened until I got older. My aunt said someone was staring at her through the window. The longer she lived there, the worse it got. But she stayed because she couldn't afford to move out. Whatever was in her house stayed on one floor at a time. There had to be more than one. Sometimes it was on the top floor, the main, then the basement. We would all stay in one room together because we were too scared to sleep separately. That was until someone else moved into the house with us. Kevin. Kevin and his baby daughter moved into the room that's right outside the attic door on the top floor. The worst room to sleep in. We tried to warn him. One night, some seriously scary shit was going on with high-pitched screams and shit being thrown at us. Kevin ran downstairs without thinking while his baby was sleeping in that room alone. Everything went silent until we heard the high-pitched crying and screaming come from the room upstairs. Kevin ran up with my aunt and my dad. The door seriously would not fucking open. Kevin moved out the very next day with his daughter. Finally, things calmed down until the night of my parents' wedding. My aunt was going to babysit me and I wanted to have a bath, so she told me not to lock the door in case someone needs the bathroom or something. The only thing I remember is starting the water and getting in. Then I woke up in a full tub and someone banging on the door. I grabbed my towel and opened the door to see a paramedic, police officer, and my aunt crying. She yelled at me for locking the door, but that's the thing, I didn't lock the door. My aunt finally decided to try and leave. but she needed to go back and grab blankets and clothes. It was nighttime and she went through the back door. She had this weird feeling like someone was watching her. As she got closer to the side gate, she stopped and looked through the cracks between the panels. She saw someone crawling out the basement window and standing tall watching her. She took off and yelled at my grandmother in the van to start the car. After that, we arranged for a priest to come to our house. Father James was very skeptical at first, but he came anyways because he saw fright in our eyes. He set up candles in each room and he told us he felt something evil. Much to my liking, I got stuck staying in the fucking room upstairs at the end of the hall with my two cousins Dan and Casey. Well, Dan thought it would be a good idea to say, "If anyone's in here, kick the bed Casey is sitting on." Not even a minute later, the bed was sent across the room. Father James told my aunt to leave the house immediately. The house was torn down a year later. Some seriously messed up shit happened in that house that I can't explain. I just know that it wasn't normal. Anyways, that's my story. Hopefully it helps some people in some way. This first event takes place in 2011, so I was 17 years old when this happened. I had always thought paranormal things were cool and I had always wanted a Ouija board. So my friend, we'll call her Mary, got me a Ouija board from Spencer's as a Christmas/birthday present. We used it for shits and giggles a few times, but nothing really significant happened. Until that summer a few months later when we went up to Mary's grandpa's house. A small house in a slightly woodsy area about 5 to 8 minutes from the closest town. We went up there with another one of my friends who we'll call Kayla. You know how you can walk into a house and it just feels wrong? That's how I felt sometimes, and I'd been in the house several times before when Mary and I had camped in the yard. Regardless, Mary, Kayla, and I settled in a small room Mary would sleep in when she was a child. We turned on the floor lamp, sat on her bed, and took out the Ouija board. The placement of the three of us is slightly significant, so I'll paint a small picture. Imagine a twin bed with three girls sitting in the middle in a triangle shape. Kayla and I sat next to each other with Mary in front of us. The board was between us with the letters facing Kayla and I correctly where Mary had to read them upside down. This is significant because of the lamp in the door. The lamp was behind and to the right of Mary, right next to the door and outlet. Now, onto what happened that evening. As the three of us placed our fingers lightly on the glow-in-the-dark oracle, we didn't really designate one person to ask the questions. Mary asked if there was anyone with us, and the oracle moved very slowly at first, then it strongly slid to yes. We took turns asking questions, most of which I can't remember. But Mary and I asked questions that only she and I knew so we could make sure Kayla wasn't doing anything to it. We then asked it what it was and if it was a ghost. It said no, so we asked if it was a demon. It said yes to that. Mary asked what its name was and it spelled out O-M-A-Z. Omaz? We all looked at each other in confusion as we tried to figure out exactly how to pronounce the supposed name as the oracle moves to yes yet again. Mary asks it why it's there and it spells out Y-O-U. All three of us are confused at that point, so Mary asked it which one of us. The oracle spelled out Y-O-U yet again. Kayla sarcastically asks if Mary is its property. The oracle moves to yes, and I remember the odd look on Mary's face. Kayla then jokingly says she's going to touch its property, and the oracle slides to no fairly quickly. Kayla then started sarcastically chanting something like, "Oh, we're touching your Mary, we're touching your Mary," and I laugh along as we both place our hands on Mary's legs. As we're laughing, the oracle flies off the board onto the wall behind Kayla and I. Usually, small plastic things such as an oracle ricochet off the walls if they're thrown, right? The oracle slid down the wall. The three of us look at the oracle, and I'm the one who eventually picks it up and places it back on the board. We don't touch the oracle and just sit there and talk, and then Kayla states that if the oracle moves on its own, she's gone. Mary, Kayla, and I talk for a bit until the lamp turns off. Mary screams and launches towards Kayla and I as we both scream with her. We huddle for probably 2 seconds before we run out of the room and into the living room. After that, we all jump into my car and run to the store to get salt and white candles. Where we went only had 2 white candles, so we had to get the rest in yellow. When we got back to the house, we poured salt in a circle around an air mattress, lit the candles in a circle, and sat there. We didn't go to sleep until we saw light outside the next morning. We looked in the room to retrieve the board and to see why the lamp went out and discovered that the bulb was fine and the switch hadn't been turned. The lamp was unplugged with the cord laying a little away from the outlet, as if someone had yanked it out. We have no idea how this could have happened accidentally, since there were no animals around. After that, we decided to get rid of the Ouija board. We ended up only getting rid of the oracle though because we couldn't find the board. To this day, we have no idea where the board is, but Mary and I could point out the exact spot we tossed the oracle. I think this is a problem because we never said goodbye. Mary and I are still very good friends, and she helped me piece together the story as I couldn't remember some details. Even today, every now and then we, more so Mary than myself, experience things that probably shouldn't happen. I can't believe I'm typing this. Please, anyone listening, bear with me. I hate telling this story. I've been having really bad nightmares the last few days, waking up sweating and crying. Not directly related, but I guess there's no better time than today to share. And before anyone talks bad, I already know my whole account sounds paranormal cliche, which is why I hate sharing it. But in my memory, this is the creepiest of the many events I have endured. And this is not some fake story. This happened to me and my family witnessed. I was in 5th grade, whatever age 5th graders are. Incredibly happy time in my life, best of my childhood. My mom and I recently moved from the High Sierra Nevadas to live with my eldest aunt in her old Victorian 15 minutes from San Francisco. I have since learned my aunt had experienced some crazy demonic shit in her 20s, and at the time, her 50s, she was deeply religious, going to church every day. She rotated between the Catholic Church and the non-denom Christian Church. Anyway, Mom and I had lived off the grid so long I was way behind in my Catholic studies. I enrolled in our local Catholic school, but I was not recognized as a full member since I had never been through catechism. My aunt insisted I be baptized. My whole family came out to watch me be baptized at the Christian church, and I got all dressed up, and afterwards the church gave me a handmade wooden crucifix. The baptism itself went uneventful in my memory. Do you denounce Satan and all his works? Yes, typical baptism. Pastor walked me into the warm pool, complete submersion. The only thing odd was afterward, many family and strangers came up to me laughing. From their perspective, I had gasped loudly enough that they thought I must have slipped into the pool and nearly drowned, but I never remembered it that way. That night, we had a small family celebration at our house. I can't remember being happier in all my short life. My mom helped me nail my new crucifix above my bedroom door. Bedtime. My bedroom was a smallish room attached to the basement. My mom and aunt had the 2 upstairs master bedrooms, and my 16-year-old cousin had the 1 small bedroom on the main floor. My other 19-year-old cousin was sleeping on the couch for the night. My mom tucked me in after we nailed my new cross above my doorway. In my room was a gigantic antique wooden armoire that came with the house. It was too huge and heavy to move, or my aunt would have had it in her room. No one could figure out a way to get it out without dismantling it. God knows how it ever made its gigantic ass in there in the first place. I fell asleep. At some point, I woke up to a massive earthquake. The whole room was shaking violently. I tried to make it to the doorway, but everything was shaking so hard I had to drop and cover. Pieces of the ceiling fell on and around me. The massive armoire moved a good 3 to 4 feet from the wall, and the doors swung open and closed. My cross was forced out of the wall and landed on the floor. When the shaking stopped, I ran upstairs. I was screaming for my mom. My cousin jumped up off the couch and thought someone was breaking in. By now, the whole family is gathered in the living room, and no one but me felt any earthquake. They told me to calm down and that it was just a nightmare. I screamed at them, "No, no nightmare, this just happened." I told them pieces of the ceiling fell on me. When they all walked me back to bed, they saw the room. Cross on the floor, ceiling chunks everywhere. Now my older cousin is pissed at me, accusing me of pranking them. I was crying and they didn't believe me until they tried to put the armoire back in place. No matter how much they tried, it would not budge. It was huge and heavy, and they realized no 75-pound person could have possibly moved it that far away from the wall. They collectively could not move it back. So that was the last night anyone ever slept in that room. My aunt had the priest come a few days later. I don't remember much after, except no one was ever permitted to sleep in that room again. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video, you're bound to like what my friend Dark5 just uploaded. 5 real-life Ouija board nightmares. A link will be on screen and in the description. I highly recommend you go check it out. Also, be sure to check out my last video if you missed it. Stay safe and thanks for watching.